Welcome to What's Your Story? We have a very interesting guest for you this hour, and our guest was actually our cover girl on Choices magazine the last quarter around, and there's a wonderful story in here about her as well. That's Tracey Starr. Tracey, thank you for being here today.
Judy, thank you so much. You're one of my best friends and favorite people on the planet. So,
well, thank you. That's quite a compliment. Tell my audience why you're known as the heart-to-heart connector, because that's what everybody calls you.
Yeah, it actually got coined by a friend of mine, Neil Gupta, a few years ago, but it's kind of been something I've done since I was a kid. My mom would say I'd, go up to strangers and talk to them at the grocery store, and I would, when as a kid, I'd be like, you should talk to this other kid, and it's kind of been this an innate thing that I do is connecting people, but I also connect with people, so I can engage with anyone at any level, and so it's like a heart-to-heart sort of thing. I really like to tune into who the person is, and I can sort of see when meeting someone or talking about an idea, things just sort of come to me, and I'm like, oh, you should talk with my friend so-and-so about your project because, they're working on this as well. It just innately happens.
You seem to know everybody.
I do.
every time you and I are around anywhere or out to lunch or whatever, people just come up and talk to you. It's amazing.
It is. Thank you.
Yeah, I think
I love people.
I can tell. Now, when you were a kid, did you have dreams about growing up and being a connector or what?
So I actually wanted to be an actress.
Oh.
Yeah, I was, I watched Silver Spoons as this, bright-eyed kid who fell in love with Ricky Schroeder and was like, I want to be an actor. And then, so elementary school, I did plays, and I actually got the lead in a couple of them. So high school, I did theater, and then college, I was like, oh, I'm gonna, this is what I'm gonna do. Well, I kind of discovered as I was going through it that I really love being on stage and I really love being in front of a camera, but I really don't like playing somebody else.
Oh,
so I know, isn't it? I was like, but at the time that I sort of quit acting, I didn't realize that I could be me on stage and in front of a camera.
Right.
So, I did a whole bunch of other different things, business consulting and, marketing and
well, and you had a big
PR.
restaurant back in Chicago.
I did,
didn't you?
yeah. For 10 years, I had a special events catering company, a food retail store, and a 175-seat restaurant. And so it was, more so my ex-husband's passions than mine, but the part of the hospitality part I loved was the people part. Making all those connections and really, giving someone an experience that they wouldn't have had, if I hadn't been involved. So I love being able to do that.
Yeah. So what led you to do the work you're doing now? And what is that work?
Well, so after the restaurants, we sort of shifted, and a friend of mine, Deborah Poneman, who is a mentor to the mentors. She mentored Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Marcy Shimoff, Janet Atwood, and me. And she actually used to come into my retail store, and so we became friends. So for 6 years, we were just friends. We used to, pal around and go to really cool events and things like that. And, one day when my life decides to change, I said, I don't know what to do. And she's like, oh my gosh, yay, now you can be who you're meant to be. And I looked at her like crazy. And I'm like, who is that? What are you talking about? And she's like, come to work with me. Well, she had a company called Yes to Success, which was all about personal development. And at the time, I really didn't know how intrinsically connected and all of her work was to the folks in The Secret. And so I started working with her, and then Marcy, who was in the movie, who was mentored by Deborah, she was actually like her secretary, it started off, started this program called Your Year of Miracles and asked if I wanted to help create it. So I joined forces, and that's how I, jumped into digital marketing, program development, personal development, all the work that I do now and have done for the last decade. And so it's really her fault. She's my angel.
She got you into it.
She totally did, yes.
Okay.
All the connections and everything there too.
Yeah. Now it's you teach the power of list.
Hmm.
And I find that interesting because I'm a list maker.
I know.
I mean, I make lists for everything. And when I work with people and they say, oh, I don't make a list, I just keep it in my head. And then they drive me nuts because they always forget to do things.
Right.
And it gets me crazy. So tell me about this, the power of list and what it can do for people.
Totally. So it's ironically, it started with The Secret, right? So my story comes with, I watched the movie, was blown away. Was, oh, there's other people on the planet who thought like I do. So I wrote a bucket list of things I wanted to have, do, be, or an experience. And on that list, I wrote, I want to befriend, and I wrote down all the names of the people in The Secret. And I had this bucket list, and I would, occasionally go back and forth to it. And then, as I said, a number of years later, here I am working with Deborah, and then I'm working with Marcy, and Marcy has all of these, connections with the people in The Secret, and we're launching this program. So with affiliate marketing, which is something I preach as a really great way of, skyrocketing your business. It's collaborations, joint ventures. And so through her, her connections, I ended up working with almost all the people on the list. I'm just crossing names off, and Bob Doyle being one of them. And then a number of years later, I get divorced. Well, I decide to write a perfect partner list. So all the characteristics of the things that I want to have in my perfect partner. And at the top of the list, I actually put that I don't need a date, that I'll just know when I know. And that I won't settle. This is how I kind of put it out there. So all the characteristics of this list, I sort of just let it go, and 5 years later, so lists sometimes, it takes a while because you actually have to, what happens with lists, and this is kind of where I'm going to go with this, is that it's a tool to get you clear about what you want to have, do, be, or experience. And then when you put all the emotions and everything else into it, you start to be the person that, can have, do, be, or experience those things, right? And so with the perfect partner, it was like that 5 years when I wrote that list, I wasn't ready to be the person to have that perfect partner.
Ah, okay.
Right?
Yeah. You knew what you wanted, but you didn't feel like you were quite ready
correct.
to
I wasn't there yet, right? And it turns out, it's like perfect and all divine, which is another thing I kind of preach, trust and have faith, it's all divine. It happens, right? So I'm at a birthday party, a friend invites me, and I meet Bob Doyle from The Secret. And instantly, I'm not going to go into the whole story, but instantly.
Instantly you knew.
Instantly I knew. And literally we had been together every single day since.
Did he know instantly as well?
Yes.
I think there's a picture of you with Bob
there
in here.
is!
Yeah, there you are with Bob, right in the
Yes,
magazine.
right
Yeah,
there.
we can get John to put that up on the
yes.
screen. Yeah.
That's fun. Yes. But so so power lists, right? Well, then you and I actually had started
300 wish
the 300 wish list.
Yeah.
So a year and a half ago, I guess it was about now, Judy had seen a
Steve Harvey
video, and he talks about his 300 list, and how he started it when he was poor, and every year he'd been doing it, and now he's Steve Harvey, right? And then you look at what he was saying is that within a year, if you make a list of 300, about 10% of that will happen. That was his experience. And some of the things that you put on there that are huge, like you dream big, you go really just out of, this is the biggest I want to be, right? Those things would happen. And so he just sort of saw the magic in it. So you and I started our own list, and then I was telling my family and all of my friends, you have to write this list. And so I just thought, well, I'm going to share this on a Facebook group. So I created a Facebook group. And now we have hundreds of people in the Facebook group. Everybody's writing their lists. And the stories and testimonials that are coming through are just phenomenal.
Yes.
And on my 300 list, I had all the different things that I wanted to have in my next house. And literally, it was like a miracle overnight. We had one experience where it was like, okay, we need to move. And 3 days later, the perfect house comes to us and doesn't hit the market. Friend was living there. Like, everything magically happened. So it's like when you are in alignment with the things that you have on your list, you bring them into your world.
Yeah, and I think the actual writing down
It's huge.
Of things, it makes a big difference, and it makes you become more aware
Yes.
of what's going on in the world. I have to tell you, I don't think I've told you yet, I just started a new list, and it's called Things I've Been Tolerating.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah,
yes.
things I've been tolerating. And I started this list because when I realized that I've been tolerating like a mess in the garage. It's been there for 3 years since I moved in. I've been tolerating it, and it bothers me. It hangs over, and so I started getting rid of the things that I've been tolerating. I made the list, and I just start at the top, and I get rid of the first one and the second one. The ones that look the easiest to do, I kind of do those first.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting that I made a list about things I've been tolerating, because I've never done that before. But you got so into the list making, I started thinking, I've been tolerating that, and I've been tolerating this, and I think I'll just make a list of that. And it's not a to-do list. It's just a list of stuff that I'm not really liking in my life. So how am I going to get rid of it?
I love that so much. It can be as simple as a grocery list, right? If you don't write a grocery list, you're going to go and you're going to wander the aisles and you're going to forget things.
And you're going to
right?
come home without something that you wanted.
Inevitably, right? With a list of the things that you want to have do be your experience, it helps to give you clarity about the things you want to have do be your experience. Or in your case, the things that you don't want to have in your life anymore.
Or
right?
be your experience.
Right. There's an endorphin rush, too, that happens in crossing things off your list. There's an achievement, a satisfaction, a boost that, you get that, gets you wanting to keep going. As well, it's like revisit that list. Really look at the things that you have on there and feel them. The list of things you don't want to tolerate. You can feel how yucky you feel about it, right? And then it inspires you to take action to go change those things so you can cross it off your list. That now the garage is clean.
Yeah.
Or,
I made a list of like 100 things, and then every day I take 3 of those things and put it on my to-do list.
Nice.
Because I've got the big list. But that big list is just for me every time I think of something to put it on there. But the 3, even if they're just a part of the other thing, I can get those done in a day, 3.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And having a to-do list every day too. I mean, it's like lists just give you clarity, but it's even more so than that. As you were saying, it's like that the writing down process. It really it's being part of the creation with the universe. It's bringing you into that vibration, that feeling, that the car. I know you'd manifested a Mercedes.
Yes.
And so the feeling of being in the car and having the pictures around and really just
and listing everything I wanted in the
yes,
car.
Exactly.
Leather seats
right.
and a little button on the side to push the seat forward and back.
Yes.
You got to list. You got to get really, really clear.
Because what happens is that you're now visualizing yourself in that car, driving that car, feeling what it's like to be in there.
Right.
And that's what really gets you into the vibration of being the person who now drives that car.
Yeah.
And so it's really just a clarity tool as well as a manifestation tool.
Well, during the pandemic, I did make another list. I made a list of all my friends.
Am I on the list?
Down. Yeah, you're at the top. You're at the top of the list. But I made a list of people who are important to me, friends. And I made a point to call one person every day during the pandemic, because I kept finding people that said they were losing track of their friends. They were, people are getting too caught up in their own yuck and what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
So I just made a list, and every day I called one, and I just made sure I kept on. I didn't have that big a list, so I could start over in a couple of weeks, but it helped.
Yeah.
It helped me to stay focused, because sometimes I don't think, how long's it been since I talked to Bob or to Tracey or to Judith or whatever. But if I have that list, and when I call, I just make a little check mark, and then a few weeks I think, oh, that's been a while, I'll call this person again. And I know it sounds it almost sounds contrived that you have to make a list of your friends to call them. But, you know, sometimes you have a really, really good friend and you forget to contact them because life is busy and life goes by and you forget to contact them, and then later on they've kind of gone by the wayside.
It happens. I mean, life happens, right? And so, yes, using lists is a way to just stay on track as well, you know, whether it's your friends or work even, you know, just the things that you want to, your goals. Mm-hmm. You know, having those listed out keeps you on track because, you know, life happens, you know, work, health, kids, stuff, you know, and suddenly a month will go by or a year will go by.
I know.
And you haven't talked to somebody.
I know.
It happens all the time,
yeah,
unfortunately.
Just the other day I was having dinner with a friend of mine, and she said that this other friend of ours had passed away. And I was like, oh my goodness, I haven't called him in at least a year and a half, and now he's gone and I can't call him.
Right.
So I didn't have him on my list, and I should have.
Yeah.
You know, that just happens.
Yeah.
But life happens.
It does.
So we want to be really, really aware of that. So what led you to this work you're doing now?
Well, okay, so, you know, I really have a passion. This is part of why Bob's my perfect partner, is to help people to be the best version of themselves and to live their best life now, not, you know, never. And so to just kind of help give them tools and guidance in being that. And whether that's, you know, with their business or whether that's personally, I like to be a sounding board and a connector, right? So oftentimes talking with people, I'll, you know, find ways that I can help them by connecting them to the right resource, or maybe it's, you know, just pointing them in the right direction, or shining a light and being in the mirror. That's another thing too that's really great. It's like mirror work and sort of just helping people to see the light that's inside of them and to really inspire them to shine it. You know, we're all here for a purpose. We all have a reason to be here, and living your passion is the best gift that you can give the world. So by, you know, hiding yourself or you know, not honoring and owning who you really are here to be, you know, is a disservice to everyone. And so I really love, you know, all the work that I do. So, you know, whether it's, you know, because I, you know, serial entrepreneur, I have a bunch of different things that I do. So, you know, one of the companies is Podcast Virtuoso, which is an interview marketing company and a podcast guesting agency. So we connect experts to podcast hosts, you know, so they can target their market and help them to monetize, you know, their message or their products or services or whatever they're doing. And so with that work, it's like, again, helping to shine a light on who they are and, you know, getting their message out and really owning what they're here to contribute to the planet.
Right.
And to you know, it's like, I really want to help, you know, people wake up. You know, wake up to the, you know, we're all one, we're all here, you know, for a reason, and you're important. You are enough. As you always say, you know, it's an important message, and I just, you know, I love being that conduit and that connector for people.
So what are some of the fun projects you're working on now?
Ooh, so the fun ones are with Bob. Go
well,
figure.
I want to go do some with Bob too,
figure,
because
yes.
I think he's fun.
I think he's fun too, yes. So we have a company called Luscious Living Lifestyle, which is a, you know, company that is really focused on bringing the lusciousness back into your daily life, concentrating on the five senses and, you know, and who you want to be through that experience. So, you know, really concentrating on healing things that, you know, help with your state. Because if, you know, you come home, it's a stressful day, and suddenly you know, change the lighting, add your favorite music, you know, put on your coffee or whatever makes sense. Light a candle. All of that changes your state, right? Simple little things that you can do, all the way to really cool, you know, sound technology and some fun things that we've discovered. Plus, we also have a program that we're coming out with called Make Out Magic, which is all about the concept of keeping your relationship passionate and alive, making out every day. Simple. Sounds crazy, but it's not. A lot of relationships end because people they lose that intimacy.
They forget to make out.
They do. They really do.
Or they don't have somebody around to make out with.
Because, well,
what do I do if I don't have somebody going to make out with my teddy bear or my cat? you know.
You just have to drive. But yeah, that is more of a couples kind of thing. Just so I say that.
Yeah,
but,
some of us aren't couples.
right? No.
I can't go. Well, you know what? That feels.
But you
pretty
know
good.
what exactly? Of course it does.
That just felt pretty good.
Yes, we should make out with ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we have to, the self-love piece is another one too. Self-love is something that I love to, really shine another light on, because people, again, are so down on themselves all of the time. They're running that chatterbox in their head, you're not enough, or, that was terrible. It's just the critic all the time. And so we don't pay enough attention to ourselves and love on ourselves to really...
I think a lot of people don't even do affirmations.
Yeah.
I was taught when I was a little girl, my dad taught me to do affirmations, and that's where you add a positive word to the words I am.
Yeah.
So you say, I'm powerful, I'm effective, I'm good at what I do, I'm pretty, I'm smart, I'm intelligent. And even if you don't believe it when you first start saying it, if you say it every day for a while, you will start to feel prettier, to feel smarter, to feel more intelligent. And, some people look at me and they think I'm crazy because, before I go on stage, I always do my little mantra. Yeah. I'm powerful, I'm effective, I'm good at what I do, people like me, I like people, that sort of thing. And I've had people say to me, you don't do that every day, do you? I'm like, yeah, sometimes 3 and 4 and 5 times a day, because it helps me feel better about myself inside. Absolutely. And I just wish that more people would learn it when they're little.
Okay, so this is really interesting. I wrote a book that I have never published that I would love to publish. It's a kid's book called I Am. And it literally says I am in each page, because it's like, it's a kid's book where
why
they could
don't we publish it?
We should do that. It's like I am beautiful, right? And there's I am strong, and there's a strong
you
all
just
that.
gave this idea to the world. We quick have to
this is mine.
Yeah, we quick have to publish this before somebody steals this idea. We're doing it this weekend.
We'll do it this weekend. I am is like the most powerful command of the universe. It's really stating I am. So when you say I am tired, or I am weak, or I am whatever,
stupid.
Yeah, I am stupid.
Or I am fat. That's another one a lot of people
totally.
do. Yeah.
Yes. Instead,
I'm so
switches.
fat.
When you look in the mirror, and this is a mirror time practice, this is another really key thing that I love to talk about, is that the power that you have of going into the mirror, spending 5 minutes a day, looking in your eye and saying your affirmations. Because what happens is that you start to speak to yourself in a way that you don't ever normally do, and the person inside that doesn't otherwise isn't ever seen.
Yes.
And it changes how you are, who you're being. It really makes a positive impact.
Yes.
And it's just a couple minutes a day.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a young girl, my father didn't have a Palm Pilot or a phone or any of the kinds of things we have, to keep track of. He had an old spiral notebook, and he would write all his appointments in there, and then at the end of the day, he would go back and put gold stars by the things he accomplished. He'd give himself a gold star. And he dropped it one day, and I remember saying to him, Daddy, what are all those gold stars in your book about? And he said, at the end of the day, sometimes there's more month than there is money. And so I reward myself. If I have a good day, I give myself a gold star. I reward myself. Well, he didn't know it then, but that's a technique called anchoring, where you anchor in your self-esteem by the physical movement of putting that star on that page. That action actually anchors in that good feeling that it was a good day.
Yes.
And then if he had a bad day, he would give himself 2 or 3 gold stars and say, I got through the day. And then some days he would have a lot of gold stars, and he would look back and say, they're not all like this. Some days are good like that, So he did that. And so when we're talking about affirmations, I think that's a part of it. That's affirming that I am good, that I did accomplish something, that I did do something. And I've been giving myself gold stars ever since he taught me that, as you know.
Yeah.
And I think this is real important for people to do, even on your list.
Yes.
When you do the things that are on your list, put a gold star. Give yourself some kind of reward.
I love it.
Absolutely. So that you feel better about yourself, that you've accomplished something and you've done something.
Yes. Yes, I just usually, it's, the endorphin rush of crossing it off, but putting a gold star is even better because you're right, there is that physical.
Yeah, it's called anchoring.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you're anchoring in your self-esteem. You're anchoring in that good feeling of having accomplished something.
Yes.
And that's very, very important for all of us.
It absolutely. I mean, we don't reward ourselves for the things that we do that, we just take for granted. It's like, oh, well, I got it done. Well, no, you got it done. Mm-hmm. Celebrate that.
Exactly.
We don't take the time to celebrate the little good things in our life. All we do is whack ourselves when we think that we've not done what we were supposed to do.
Isn't that true?
We're programmed that way. It's sad.
And it's the same thing for people like us who are speakers.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever given like what you thought was like a really good speech, and then later you read the evaluation sheets, and there were 100 people in the audience, 99 of them said you were wonderful.
Yeah.
One said you stunk, right?
And that's the one that sticks in
And what do
your
you
head.
Concentrate on? The one that said you were terrible.
Yep.
You're not the 99,
No.
not the people who all thought you were wonderful, but the one who had something rotten to say.
Yep.
And I had to convince myself early on that about 3% of the people in there are looking to find something wrong with you. And so just don't pay attention to it. You do the best that you can do, and that's all you can do. I quit reading those evaluations because I was doing the best every day. I was giving my best. I was going there and like you, just giving it everything I've got. I am not going to let somebody else's negative energy tear that down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can't be a people pleaser, right? Which, oftentimes, especially if you're geared to be that, it's hard to, rewire yourself. But there are almost 8 billion people on the planet. You can't please everybody.
No.
And the only person you really need to please is yourself.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
As long as you think that you did your very best, that's all that matters. Comparing yourself to anybody else is a disservice to you because you're really, and the world, because you're not going to show up then as your best self, because you're going to always have that like lingering, nonsense running in your head. And it's just causing doubt and fear and all that yucky stuff that comes up. And that's some people just operate like that so often and all the time. Unfortunately, it's like they think that that's how life is supposed to be. And they can rewire themselves.
I wonder if they even think about it.
Well, okay, so that's a good point. There are people who are just on autopilot all of the time that don't know that there's a different way of being because they've just not been exposed to it. They're programmed, within a certain, culture, and that's all they know, and that's all they know. It's educating and it's getting them, the message out to the world that, there is a different and better way to be, and that it doesn't have to be, the way that you've been programmed to think that it has to be.
Exactly. I had a program I was doing back east in a casino back there, and one of the ladies in the program came to me afterwards. She said, "I'm 37 years old and I never knew about goals until today."
Exactly.
And those of us who grew up in this goal-setting world, we're like in shock, that somebody would get to be that old and not know about setting goals.
Correct.
But once she learned, she took off and she just changed her life. She got better and better. I'm still in touch with her 10 years later, and she just reports in about what all's happening and how good it's working and so on. But I think for people like us, who kind of grew up in all of this, we're just amazed when people don't know, but a lot of people don't know, and that's why we're trying to share it.
Right, exactly. And that's being the bullhorn for people who have what I call miracle messengers, right? They have a message, a gift, or something that needs to be shared.
Exactly.
That's why I like being the connector, especially with the podcast. It's like, let's broadcast everyone out into the world and let's share all these messages so we can help make people's lives better.
And if we make people's lives better, we make the world better, don't we?
Yes,
Yay!
we do. Exactly.
Tracey Starr, thank you for being here with me today.
Judy,
it's been
thank you.
Absolutely wonderful to have you as a guest.
Thank
Please
you.
tell my audience how they can get in touch with you.
Yes. Heart2heartconnector.com. It's, with a 2 in the middle. And also any interest with podcast guesting or interview connections, it's podcastvirtuoso.com/Tracey. And there's a special little tips sheet that helps to prepare you for interviews. So if you're not like, someone who does this on a regular basis, there's some pointers on what to do and how to show up and
Oh, that's
as your
nice.
best self.
That's good to have.
Yeah, and also like how to get booked.
Oh, great.
It's
great. Good information, huh?
Good information.
So thank you. That's let's do those addresses again.
So hearttoheartconnector.com and podcastvirtuoso.com/Tracey.
Great. Thank you for being
Gee,
here.
Thank you so much. I love you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for being with us today. And stay tuned because we have an offer for you. Do you want to write a book, but you're not sure where to start? Well, what better time than now? You can learn how to plan, write, and launch your book in just 4 weeks. Writing and publishing a book can give you huge exposure, and when done right, will help you establish expertise and authority in your market. When it comes to creating and launching your book, it may be tempting to just dive into the world of writing and publishing, but this can leave you feeling scattered, uncertain of your message, and overwhelmed by your to-do list. This is why so many people give up and books go unpublished and stories go untold. Planning is the answer, and that's exactly what this e-course will help you do every step of the way. When you have a plan in place for how you'll write, publish, and market your book, the process is much more enjoyable and achievable. Go to my website now, judymoreo.com, that's JUDIMOREO.com, and learn how.